Live from Perth, Australia, and broadcasting around the world, you're listening to The O Show with your host, Oren McCory. The O Show is a no-nonsense podcast bringing you the best advice on training, mindset, and nutrition to supercharge your efforts in the gym, the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. Don't forget to share this episode on your social media. Now, let's get to it.
Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of The O Show, and today I have a very special guest, one of the coaches that when I moved here 2 years ago, I quickly found out about all the good coaches around, and this guy's been over east. He has a big name. He wears a lot of different hats in the realm of online coaching and all the different programs that he offers, and he, in my opinion, since I've moved here, has been one of the top coaches around and has the reputation for being that. So I want to invite on and welcome on Kyle Weber.
None of these hats are going to fit my head anymore, man.
That's it. I mean, I try to give everyone as good an intro as we can, right? So, but it's true, mate, to be honest, like I kind of network with the best coaches around here. And through that, I learned about all the best coaches over East. And you've been somebody that I've been following for a while. And I think you've got the name and the reputation behind you to have an awesome podcast here. So that's obviously why I got you on, buddy.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that a lot, especially going into a different field, which we'll talk about now. Like it's nice to know when someone comes out of the woodwork that like you didn't really know was following you or is making an impact, and you're like, oh wow, like that's cool to hear. I think that's one of the I give credit to social media for some of that kind of stuff, man, where, we never know who's watching, we never know who's listening, and hearing little things like that, even like you've already started my afternoon off great. So thank you.
There we go, man. That's my impact. I'm normally good at building people up and helping them, which is a big part of what you're going to be doing with your new project, which we'll talk about in a minute. But mate, just let's break the ice a bit, let the audience know a little bit about your personality. We're going to start with your stripper name. This is something we've done for a few podcasts since my client suggested it. So basically, your first name is your stripper name, is your first ever pet.
First ever pet would be Jekyll.
Jekyll, okay. Well, this is going interesting places already. And what's the first street you lived on?
Well, it's not linked to my bank account, so he can't try to hack it. But it was Colbatch.
Colbatch. So Jekyll Colbatch. I mean, that could work. Who knows?
It's not bad. I'll give it a go. My PS4 username is Big Daddy Kweb. If that works a little bit better, I reckon I could do that as a.
That could definitely be a stage name, right? Huh? So, no, I mean that's killer. So let's fire another couple on at you. What's your favorite gym lift?
Oh Jesus! Anything that gets done quickly, so I can get out of there faster. I like doing calf raises because I don't ever do them. So then when I do them once, everyone stops and thinks that the key to big calves is by doing calf raises, and I'm like, nah, it's just being like a 5'3" midget and walking on your toes trying to be taller.
Yeah, that's fair. And then
about it.
Obviously you've competed at quite a high level. So when you're dialed in, what's your favorite body part? What do you think is the strongest thing for you on stage?
Oh, calves are that an issue. Like my calves take it. There's been times where like if I got injured in 2015, I couldn't train legs for the entirety of my prep, and I prepped for 10 months. And the only thing I could do for my legs was riding a bike. So wow. I would do the stationary bike, and I'd do sprints and stuff on that. I couldn't squat, couldn't do anything. And during that time, like I lost a little bit of size off of my quads and my hamstrings, but they still looked amazing. Like my legs are always a standout for me. But in that time, my calves actually were bigger than my quads. And wow. It was something where I remember laying down, taking a photo of it because I was laying on the lounge, and I looked at my leg and I'm like, that doesn't look right. I took a photo and I'm like, I know it's not meant to be that way proportion wise, but like I'm kind of okay with that because I don't think anyone else looks like this.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. So now I'm going to have to go back and look at all your photos to find the picture of your calves now then, right?
Oh yeah, you have to. I'm not one to talk myself up, but like you got to find them.
Yeah, 100%, buddy, 100%. So let's get into it a bit, mate. Now that the audience kind of know you and your personality a bit, I think they'll probably sense that we're having a bit of fun on this. But now let's get a little bit a bit into your journey. So in terms of what got you started in the fitness industry in general, and then what made you want to become a coach?
Oh man, starting actually in the fitness industry. Like when I first got into the gym, it was because I remember a time when a relative of mine passed away, and I had no idea who they were. And it was when, when you've got those family members that like your parents are close with, like you don't really know them, so you're just going along with whatever it is that's happening. And so we had to travel. We had to travel to Adelaide to go to the funeral, and my parents made a bit of a holiday about it. And I was always like the bigger kid growing up in high school, width-wise, not height-wise. And I remember a vivid point. I would have been about 8 or 9, where I took my shirt off and there was a mirror in the hotel room that we were staying. And I looked at myself sideways and I saw that I had like these tits sticking out of me and I had like a stomach. And I judged myself something chronic. I was like, oh my God, like, who are you? Like, what's going on? You're meant to be like a boy. Why do you have like man boobs? And like, why do you have a stomach so big, man? And for everyone that's listening to this, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a, let's say you have a child that's 9 or 10 and they're saying these types of things. Okay. Imagine what that impact it would have made on a child of that age. Now that didn't come from anything. There was nothing wrong with my upbringing whatsoever. It was just an inherent thing that I got by comparison to other children. I would look at the other kids in school and they'd be skinny and they'd be doing gymnastics and they'd have abs and they'd run fast and that wasn't me at all. And I always wanted to be like that. And so over the years, I learned that, I wanted to have more muscle. So I went to the gym and I started to get more fixated on like growing and getting bigger instead of like trying to lose fat. And then by the time I got into like further into high school, people started knowing me as like the one that knew how to work out all the time and, had big arms and had big legs and stuff like that. And so that kind of became a bit of an identity that formed everything in me growing up as a kid. People would then come to me for advice on those types of things, even people that like I would look up to. I would see, I was mates with a couple of like elite level cyclists and I'd see them and, they'd be absolutely shredded and their legs would be insane. I'm going, wow, I wish I could get my quads like that. But they'd be coming to me for advice and they go like, what do you eat to get like your abs out that way? And I'm looking at them and going, mate, you're shredded. Like I got nothing compared to like what you have, And that kind of paved the way for how I got into bodybuilding. I'm sure people will be able to relate to this. These little behaviors and these thought patterns that we have growing up can really affect our thoughts and our interests later on. And so as I got further into bodybuilding, I started to, look at, I really love Lee Priest and I used to look up to him and I used to always look at photos because he was short too. So I'm like, yeah, if I can make it good as a bodybuilder, this is someone that I could potentially, try to look like. And so, I did everything I could to, look at myself and go, well, he had this shaped arms and this is what his legs look like. And this is his perfect, like symmetrical abs and stuff like that. And I just do everything I could to get myself as close as I could to, that image that I thought was achievable. And then growing up, I remember I did my first comp when I was 18 and I got absolutely smashed. Like I think there was 14 kids in my lineup and I got like 12. And I loved every second of it. I did my prep myself. I loved the fact that I was the only one in school that was, getting up in the morning and training and dieting themselves. I was bringing my meals to school and stuff. And I'd take toilet breaks in class so that I could go and have like an extra meal because, we only had recess and lunch. And so I'm like, well, that's only 2 meals, man. Like I got breakfast, recess, lunch. I need to get in at least another one in between there. Because at the time, man, you go, I've got to eat every 2 hours so I can fuel my anabolic window. So I'm thinking, oh, shit, I've got to do that. And did my first comp, got smashed, absolutely loved it. And I said to myself, like after I stepped up that stage, I'm like, I'm going to come back and win this next year. And so I trained every day after, I binged for the next week or so because I had no idea about dieting and mental health and, any of that kind of stuff. So I went hard, binged, made myself throw up a few times, all that kind of stuff. And I'm saying it, in a very normalizing sense, but these are quite severe issues that people do face. At the time, I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I didn't realize it because bodybuilding back then, there wasn't bikini competitors, there wasn't fitness models, there wasn't men's physique divisions. It was just like bodybuilding. I think there might have been like a fitness class for men, and there was like women's physique, and that was really like it. So you're either a jack chick or a jack dude, and that was it. If you weren't anything else, you was taught that you had to work harder until you got there, and it wasn't as broad as what it is now. And so that then just got me in a mindset of like, well, if I push myself to keep working harder and to do more, then I'll get the result, because I saw that happen. And over time, like it just kept happening. And as I was younger, I started to get really interested in the nutrition side of things. I had a job as a PT because that was my goal after school. I got a job as a PT, and I lasted 2 months because I hated every second of it. So I was like, fuck this. I don't want to be yelling at people, telling them what to do. So then I went to uni and went through the nutrition at uni. And I realized that like that is what I preferred. I like focusing on the diet side of things. And then I ended up like, I was always really focused on like, you know, your self-help and discovery and growing as a person and that sort of development aspect, because that's what helped me get through bodybuilding. You know, when we all have times when we're going like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to go to the gym, how do I get motivated? And you know, at the levels that people are at now, sometimes we look back and we don't remember that we were once in those positions as well, you know, of not knowing how to keep pushing on. We haven't had that learned experience to know how to keep going, so we had to find those external sources of motivation. And so I, you know, watch the videos and I'd read the motivational quotes and stuff. I have things put up on my wall all over the place, and everything that we kind of like cringe about now, you know, we all did it at some point. And so I was really big on that, which forced me to, you know, I ended up wanting to start my own business. So I actually opened up a supplement store with a friend of mine when I was 20. I had a whole bunch of savings I was saved up all through working in school, and I just dumped it all into that and then took out a massive loan. And then that ended up not working out. And during the time, I had a lot of people that would come into the store and would know me through like posting on Facebook or posting on bodybuilding.com and forums and stuff like that. And they'd see me and they'd be like, oh, you know, I've seen your stuff around. Would you be able to give me some tips or advice? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like it was never a thing. Like I never wanted to actually be a bodybuilding coach. I just like doing it. But then I was happy to help people out. And then when my partnership dissolved, I kind of just thought, well, this is what I'm good at. I like doing it. So I might as well get into that and see if, you know, there's enough people that want it, and, you know, charge people for it and see if it's a thing. Because online coaching then, man, it was just getting started. Like it wasn't big. No one in Australia did it. The only coach I ever had was in US. And again, I've still only ever outsourced overseas. So back then it wasn't big the way that it is now. Facebook, you couldn't even advertise on it yet. So it was quite easy for me, man. Like imagine Facebook without all these ads about how to be an online fitness coach. You know, it was a dream time. But you know, back then it was like where I took it, and I just saw that like there was such a big demand for it, so I just kept going, and then kind of, you know, took it from there and just grew as I grew. So as I did more bodybuilding, competed more, realized that, you know, I got more exposure, and that made me want to develop more as a coach and sort of start to always keep ahead of what I saw other people doing. Because I would see some people like trying to come up, and I'd always want to support whenever I saw someone that was trying to learn as much as they could, because I was still young. Like, you know, during this time I was like 20, 22. And so I was trying to support someone going through it, because I'd see, you know, me and them just like accelerated a little bit. So I try to help, and I'd see people coming up, and I do what I could. And then it just kind of like naturally progressed into growing more things, getting better, growing different parts of my physique, and everything in my life was like focused on trying to improve things all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, that's massive, and that's quite a journey, obviously. And it's quite similar to myself. You know, I wasn't really like the sportiest kid at school, and that kind of led me to that gym. And once you start training, it really empowers you to then level up in all areas of your life. And that kind of leads us in me, because the reason why, like, I've had you on my list for a potential podcast guest since like episode 2 or 3, when I listed everyone. There must be about 50 names on this sheet. But you're now launching this new project, and I thought, wow, this is a good time to reach out and talk about why you kind of want to go down this route. So let's talk about that, because it's designed around helping motivational mentoring clients. I think that's the way you described it on one of your posts, with reducing their anxiety and depression and all these common things that, the amount of people who have this stuff nowadays is extremely common. And you kind of want to remove that and give them the confidence and motivation to perform in all areas of your life. So why is that so important to you? And what are the common issues that people face? Like, why did you think there's such a good niche for this? Like, is this such a common thing that you get with your nutrition and bodybuilding clients then?
100%. First of all, it's not so much these days that everybody has anxiety, or everybody like has depression, or even, you know, goes down routes of feeling those ways. It's more everybody and many people have the ability to experience those feelings. As soon as we start to label it a little bit, it can become quite damaging to those that experience it at a very high level, and that are, you know, clinically diagnosed under the DSM as having these things. And I find in fitness culture, it's very normal. And look, I used to do it too. You know, I used to look at clients and be like, "Oh, what are you stressing out for so much? Like, why are you so upset about this? Like, why are you putting so much pressure on yourself? Like, it's not fine. You know, anxiety, you can just think away. You know, you can't. The reality is you really, really can't, right?" And you know, taking back to, you know, the first, you know, 15 minutes of me gas bagging on about all this crap, about, you know, my journey in getting into coaching, and like I was, you know, so there was a lot, and it was quite, you know, in depth going into it. That was the first half. So the first half is all like, you know, happy, progressive, really great. And the second half is the rain and the winter side of things, where I started to really crumble. I started to realize that I was putting so much pressure on myself to, you know, I started a family then, and at the time, it became a real struggle for me to juggle having my daughter and supporting my partner at the time, and trying to keep up with my business and staff, and keeping keeping my image, you know, intact, while also competing. And I constantly battled with like feeling as though I couldn't do it, but I had all these previous thoughts built up from bodybuilding of like, no, you can just keep going, just keep fighting, like just push through it, work harder, you can do it. And so I did that. I went through it all. I tried to make sure that I could delegate my time as best as possible. And I would find that, you know, everyone would tell me that, you know, you're going to burn out, or people would say to me, I can't imagine how you can do all this kind of stuff. You know, like, that's amazing. And for me, I'd always just think, oh, yeah, whatever, like it's nothing, right? But why I thought it was nothing was because when I was growing up and getting into bodybuilding, I worked 3 jobs. I was working at removals, I was working as a PT, and I was working in the bowling alley. I was also going to uni at the time, and my day would look like I'd wake up at 2:30 in the morning. I'd train in my dad's garage. I would finish training, go open the gym up at 4:30, work from 4:30 to 8:30, go to uni from 9 o'clock until 1-ish. From 1 to 3, I'd go to my removals job, finish my removals at 3, go start my other job at the bowling alley from 4 to 5, close up the alley at like 10, 11 o'clock or so at night, get home by 10:30, sleep for 3 hours, do it again. And I did that for 2 years. And I just built up this ability to go, yeah, well, that's normal, that's fine. And, you know, my mum would always say, like, you can't keep doing this, like, it's too much, your obsession. I'm like, no, like, Mum, like, you don't understand, you know, like, as if you're going to understand me, right? Who are you to tell me what to do with my life, Mum? You know, I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid. Like, this is me. I know what I'm doing, right? And so what I found later on was, you know, I was really struggling to balance things, but I took on that same learned behavior that I had when I was a kid without the same responsibilities. And because I had greater responsibilities this time, it was so much harder. And what happened was, when we do these things when we're younger and we force these behaviors and these learned patterns, especially getting into fitness, sometimes we forget about the other priorities that can come about later on in life, especially when it comes to, you know, owning a business, having a family, juggling different types of things, whatever it may be. And I noticed that was really affecting me, but I took that mentality and was like, no, I'll run with it. And so in doing so, it ended up ultimately me constantly beating myself up over not spending enough time with my partner, not spending enough time with my kid, not being the coach that I wanted to be, taking on too many people, not taking on enough people, not serving people the right way. Everything that people told me I wasn't doing was what I felt I was doing. You know, all the compliments that I'll be receiving, I couldn't feel them. I couldn't understand them because I was so critical of myself. And that self-criticism led me to ultimately, you know, dissolve my relationship, break up my family, go through an extended process with that, and really reconsider the way that I had everything to do with my business. You know, I ended up like hating how I'd become. I didn't know where it came from. One thing stayed consistent, and that was the fact that with all the different clients I had, what they found most beneficial for me was the ability that I had to just speak to them when they were in pits of feeling really rough. And I was able to, like, I always get told, like, I love your honesty. I love how you can tell me how it is. And I love how you can explain things to me in a way that makes me understand it. And I never appreciated it at the time because, you know, we see things, you know, these days about, you know, being raw and real and open and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost like people use those as hashtags to bolster themselves for being more fake. And to create a different kind of self-image that is incongruent with how they really feel about themselves. And so I started to think about that, and I thought, you know what, like maybe this is something that's, that is a part of me that's good. And I like that. And I started to not beat myself up so much about, you know, how I was with clients until I had a client once win the Arnold Classic in Columbus as an amateur. And it was amazing because we worked on that competition for like 6 years. And to have that happen, I was stoked. It was, you know, one of the most rewarding feelings ever because I'd taken her from absolute scratch until winning, you know, one of the biggest comps on the planet. And when that happened, I was so happy. And then the next day, I'd never felt more lost and miserable in my life. And it was such a turning point because I was like, oh my God, this just happened. I know I should be happy. Why aren't I? Why can't I be? And so the next 10 months was me spent going back and forth to my psychologist being like, help, I'm ruined. I can't feel confident. I can't accept compliments from people. I can't feel like I'm a good person. You know, am I horrible for being this way? You know, like what are my actions doing? And then I realized that over time, all these thoughts and feelings that I had as a kid when I was pursuing a hobby from a negative place of wanting to change something and never being good enough, always wanting to improve. As much as I wasn't beating myself up about it on the surface level, I was on an inner level. You know, like I would want to compete and I'll go, I just want to keep being better. I just want to improve. I just want to grow. You know, this sport is always about constant improvement and like, you know, positive moving. But deep down, we all start for a reason. And many of us start from the same position as what I did, as wanting to change something about ourselves or wanting to fix something that we don't like. And for as long as we continue with that mentality without addressing it, it will start to eventually feed into other areas of our life that cause us these periods of stress and anxiety and, you know, depression, where we're feeling so down that it just doesn't feel like there's any possible way to come back up again. And we'll have all these different thoughts run through our head. We'll start to panic as well. You know, I remember I had a panic attack once at an expo where I'd never had this before. And I was there with a client for a competition, and I had people that, like, my social media was getting pretty big, and I had people that I'd arranged to go and meet with and say hi to and all this kind of stuff. And so I was running around like a headless chook trying to, you know, find these people and say hi and everything, and, you know, take the photos, you know, do the, like, you know, that point where you're like, that's the thumb up thing. Yeah. Try to do that, trying to do the ad angles and whatever. You know, I was having the time of my life, I was happy. All of a sudden I stopped being able to hear anything and my heart was racing. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I started hyperventilating and I started sweating, but I was freezing, like absolutely freezing cold. And I just had to run. Like, I bailed. This is at the, I think it's called Philex, maybe. Whatever it was in Sydney. It was like a big fitness expo there in Darling Harbour. And I bailed. Hey, like, I just bolted outside and just stood at the harbour breathing, right? Anyway, like, I ended up going out for dinner later on that night with the guys that I was with, and I was still feeling off, hey. And so in the Uber on the way there, I'm like, they were talking and I was involved in the conversation, but I couldn't hear them. It was like they were speaking, I could hear a noise, but I had no idea what words they were saying. And it was like I could actually see the words going in one ear and out the other. And I was in my own head, I was beating myself up, and I didn't have words. I didn't know how to express anything. I couldn't open my mouth. I couldn't speak. It was the strangest feeling I'd ever experienced. And when we got to dinner, I don't drink. Like, I'm not a big drinker. And I was like, I just need to have something, like, give me the most hectic cocktail possible and watch me down it. And doing so just calmed me out. And then I remember I called up my GP the next day and I was like, Ben, I'm dying. Help. And he was like, you know, calm down. You know, like, well, when you come back, like, here's some time, book in and have a chat. And he said to me, it's like, bro, you know, you've been through a lot recently. You know, you've got a lot that's built up. I think you had a panic attack, and it's starting to expose a little bit of anxiety that you might have been feeling. And I was like, shit, really? Like, me? No way. Like, of course not. Like, I'm this strong person that's on top of everything. Like, I pride myself of how I can be, you know, always taking things on the chin and just pushing. And, you know, like, something happens, I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, just brush it off, keep going. Like, yeah, it sucks, but, you know, it could be worse. I'd always tell myself it could be worse. You know, I functioned off of thinking that way when something bad would happen. And so I just soldier on through it all, because as bodybuilders, you know, we're getting to the end of the set and we're told, just keep going. It's going to hurt. Just keep pushing. Just keep going. You know, don't stop. If you stop, you're weak. If you stop, you quit. If you stop, someone's going to beat you, you know? So I carried that out into every aspect of my life. And so I did that until that was a big turning point. And I started to realize, like, wow, okay, this is pretty rough. And he said to me that, and this has always stuck to me since, he said to me that sometimes when we're going through these periods, it's best to just try to separate our situations and try to pause and have a couple of breaths and realize. And him and I were very close. He's since unfortunately passed away, and he went through a lot of experiences himself. And in doing so, he would pass this information on to me, and I felt as though, like, oh, I've got to stick to this, and I've got to, you know, give it some credit and follow through with it. And it made such a massive difference. I'm like, wow, like, it's amazing how just slowing down and thinking about things and pausing instead of trying to fix stuff makes everything better. Like, if I can not try to be critical of myself and change things, then I can actually allow myself the space to think clearly and decide if it's something I want to change or if I don't. And that led me way further down the rabbit hole, right? And so 2 years later, I ended up, like, I was studying psychology, still am now. And it made me realize that this is something that is not just me. This is something that so many people in the fitness industry experience. And I kind of felt like I was so over bodybuilding. I was so over prepping people. Like, I found no enjoyment out of it anymore. I'd done it for so long. I couldn't care less about it anymore. Like, I liked knowing that I was making an impact in someone's life. But when I knew that I was, you know, prepping them for a competition, but being ignorant to the fact that they had all these underlying issues and I wasn't addressing it to them, I felt like I was a fraud. I felt like, how can I be leading someone down this path without addressing it? I can't keep doing this. And so that led me down the path of going, I need to be able to expose this. Now, in fitness, especially with the audience that I built up, everyone was like a figure competitor, like a bodybuilder, right? They don't want to hear that bodybuilding is the worst thing that they can do for their lives. You know, I wouldn't listen to it. No way. But in doing so, I was like, I was too scared to say anything. I'm like, oh, no one's gonna, understand that. No one's gonna appreciate my view or opinion from it. Until I managed to, through my own tools, convince myself, like, no, you just need to do this and just see what happens. And so I came up with a bit of a system for how I managed to get myself through a lot of these rough periods, especially when it came to, developing how I wanted to feel as a dad and getting the confidence to be able to present myself and show up, at school as a parent that is always playing with the other kids and is able to come home and have the messy house and not care if somebody walks in and is like, oh my God, like it's shit everywhere. I'm like, yeah, it's my house, my kid, like she runs a joint around you, like, awesome. I will clean up everything around it. But if you want to throw toys and stuff all over the floor, like, do it. So if you're happy, I'm happy. I'll clean it up when you're in bed,
Yeah.
Like, and that was hard, little things like that are really hard to take on because we're also critical of ourselves, especially when we're competing in a sport that essentially we're getting up on stage to get told that we don't look as good as somebody else,
Yeah.
And so we go away and we ask for feedback. We're like, why didn't I get the way that I wanted? Well, because you needed more of this. You are not good enough. You need this, this, and this, and then you might get rewarded for it,
Mm-hmm.
And so that impacted me, something chronic. And I started realizing that. Once I realized it, I thought, well, I know how I managed to realize that. And I know how I can allow other people to realize that too. And when I decided to actually put something together and go out with it and actually present it to people and launch something, it blew me away with the amount of people that were like, oh my God, I've been feeling this for so long. Like I had my VA go through a whole bunch of people. I needed her help because I was getting all these messages from people being like, Carl, I feel this way too. Like, what did you do? How did I get out? Like, how did you get out of it? Like, what happened? She went through like 77 messages in the space of like 3 hours of me putting something up. And I'm like, oh my God, like I wasn't expecting that. What do I do? And some of the stories that I read was so like, it was so heartbreaking but warming at the same time because I could feel every single bit of it. Like, it allowed me to really go, wow, like, you're there, I'm there. It was almost like a cathartic feeling for me because I'm like, hey, you know what? It wasn't just you that was struggling, and all along you've been putting off doing this, and now you've done it. And all the thoughts and fears that you had about people thinking that, it wouldn't happen or they're not going to listen to you, they all just confirmed your own like insecurity and the belief that you had in that insecurity that it was just that. And that really made me, it changed my confidence completely. It was like, wow, like I can do this, and this is something that I want to go down. And now it's all about, if I can reach out and connect with people that are understanding that when it comes to their fitness, sometimes it can take them down a bad track, and they're not always going to realize that, because usually we want to do fitness and we want to look after our bodies because we want to improve ourselves, right? We want to take care of ourselves. We want to be kind. We want to be functioning well from the inside out. But our mental approach to doing that is super, super important. And we aren't taught that kind of stuff. Even though, like I've gone through psych at uni, I've been through nutrition at uni, I've gone through my own like therapy and stuff with people. Like I haven't been taught any of this stuff. Like it's things that you can only pull out from experience, and then you use theory and stuff, to back it up and to understand and develop great awareness around it. But for the most part, the empathy comes from being able to live it, and that's hard. But it's really cool for me to see like how many people are struggling with the same types of things, and for people to have the confidence to reach out to me just to talk about it, like that in itself is meaning the world to me. For even with you to tell me that like you wanted me to come on this podcast, and me doing this has been like a turning point for you, because you're like, wow, this is interesting. Like just the fact that you find this interesting, that lights me up, because it's motivating for me to help bring that motivation to other people.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And like you can tell the passion and the knowledge and the experience that you've got just from listening to me. To be honest, I was transfixed there, and I said to you at the start, go as deep as you want on any of these, and I'm not going to stop you. And I was literally just watching the screen like, holy shit, like this guy is like taking over. Like this is absolutely awesome, and you can really see that, mate. So I'm not surprised that you've had 77 people who, want to jump on board and have help with this, because it's very clear. And like that's why when I wanted to really understand it. So I went through all your posts lately, and like you really come across as genuine, authentic, and knowledgeable about this stuff and the posts you've been putting up. So I understand it completely, mate. And it's something that I struggle with as well, especially lately. And it's funny timing, because there's been a lot in the past week. Like my daughter's turning 1 in just over a week. And like this year has been me pushing hard for business, especially since COVID started. I've changed a lot of things. I'm kind of trying to level up, and I'm trying to give 100% to both. And especially now that I'm doing mostly online coaching, it's kind of hard to pull yourself away at times and come up and have to do work here. And then it's whenever you're down there in the living room playing around, like you're kind of still thinking about everything that you need to do, come back up into the office. So it's kind of hard, mate. So like how do you juggle everything? Because you have done a lot of things, and you're probably concurrently doing a lot of different things at the moment in terms of this new package is launching. You still got physique coaching clients, you still do a lot of nutrition and mentoring trainers and stuff like that. How do you find the balance? How do you find to be able to switch off from one, or go from wearing one hat to another? And just any tips that you've got for anyone who might be struggling with that whole balance thing.
I think one of the most important things that I've learned for myself, and what I try to pass on to people, is that if you try to seek that balance, and if you try to fit all the hats on your head, you won't get it. You won't find it. Like I remember what it was like. You telling me that you got a 1-year-old, or next week, and I immediately think back to what it was like when my daughter was 1. I'm going, I got a new family. Like this is paving the way for me. I need to be there. But as a father, you're kind of going, what's my role here? And what should I be doing? I know I'm a dad, but I'm not really breastfeeding. I'm not like, the baby's not asking for me all the time. I want to be there and I want to do everything that I can, but like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what dads are meant to do. So I'm going to just make sure that I'm looking after my partner, and I'm looking after building up everything. I'm making sure that, we've got a roof over our heads, and while the baby's taken care of, I'll make sure I'm playing and I'm forcing an interaction. But I've also got to make sure I'm balancing everything else. Right. Yeah. And it's such a hard feeling. And for so long I tried to just go, am I doing this right? Like, is this the right thing I should be doing? Is there a better way that I can juggle it? Because, whenever I'm with my child, I'm thinking about work, or I'm getting a text message, or I might be working, but I'll hear my baby crying in the background, or I'll have a mum asking me for something, and I feel so bad because I'm like, should I do that? Should I not do that? Am I busy? Am I not busy? Do we structure times? Like, what's going to work best? Yeah. And I find that everyone tries it, man, because everyone experiences the same stuff. I never talked about it when I was going through it all. And everyone tries to seek balance, and some people can do it really well. My way of finding balance is to understand that there is no balance. Like my way of balance is by making it work for me, and understanding that, that a child has their own schedule. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be waking up every 2-3 hours, sometimes every 45 minutes in the night, bro. Like, there were times where I remember sitting down. I was, I'm really into like piano stuff and a lot of like old school pianists. And I remember sitting down, listening to Yuko Umo, who's like a really cool Japanese pianist, and I had that playing really, really loud in my daughter's like nursery when she was like 1, because if I left the room, she'd pull her eyes out. If I wasn't in the room, then my partner wouldn't get any sleep, and so it was like so frustrating. I'm like, no, it's all good. Just keep yourself awake and just blast this piano music, knowing that like, she's content with you sitting on the floor, and I'm doing client reports on my laptop, right? And I thought, man, like I can't do this forever. But beforehand, you're stressing out about, what should I do? What's the right thing? And you end up just going, I don't know how to juggle any of this, right? And so the best way to find the balance is to realize that sometimes you can't find it. And what I've found is trying to center everything around like who I am and what I want as a person. And usually it comes back to understanding your own morality and what's important to you. So it's hard for me to not bring it all around parents, because not all of your listeners are going to have kids, but you can always find something. And for me, it was, how do I want to be presenting as a dad? Like, what's important to me? And we all say, I want to be there for my kid. I want to be around them. I want to be providing for them, all this kind of stuff. And in doing so, we put the pressure on ourselves to do it in our way rather than doing it in their way, and doing it in their way. Like, you want to be there for them? Like, be there for them. It's something that I wish I did, because now later on, when I develop doing that, I'll have people messaging me on weekends and sending me texts at nighttime, and I still get, a little bit of like a rush type feeling if I'm getting a text at 6 o'clock and I'm making dinner. I've got my daughter sitting down, she's playing with something, or she might be watching TV, whatever it might be, right? I'm getting a text from a client. I still get that, feeling of, I'll just respond to this one, like, they're messaging me. I feel like I need to get back to it, right?
Yeah.
And then I remind myself that, no, you made a commitment to yourself that, like, after school, from the moment that like you pick your daughter up and then put her to bed, you ain't working, you ain't talking to people, like, you're doing your stuff. And to me, that's balance, because it's about, other people might not appreciate that, and other people might find that, a negative trait, a negative quality, or they might not find it valuable. But to me, that's fine, because no one's going to have the same values. No one's going to understand my version of balance. And I feel like if we can center ourselves to going down our own moral path and deciding what it is that we really want to be like, centered around like one main, like, inherent focus. It's like all of us as a person, we've all got one main thing that's like a really big driving force. And over time, that kind of splits into different areas, and we like put more of ourselves into one thing, we lose it with another thing, and we kind of like get a little bit tangled up as to how we're presenting. And when we're putting on all these different hats, we can cause ourselves to present in different ways. Now, I prefer to just wear the one hat and make it cover all of them, because if I'm showing up as me, then me in, like, I hired someone to help me out with my content yesterday, last night. He's from the UK, and he's very, very good with structure and organization and stuff. And I was like, bro, like, that's not me, hey. And he was like, oh, would you like to catch up? We'll do a training session. He wanted me to walk him through how I systemize some stuff online. And he's like, oh, I'll make some time at the end of the week, or if you've got some time tomorrow, whatever. I said, mate, like, can we please do it tomorrow? Because if we make it at the end of the week, I guarantee you I won't do it, and I'll put it off, and then I just won't even end up contacting you again. Yeah. And he was like, whoa, that's full on. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm also very aware of how I function. And I know that in order for me to be doing things the right way, I've got to show up as the same person all the time. And he really, really appreciated that, because he's like, sweet, like, that's awesome. The more organized I can be, I can just get straight back onto it. That's what I need. He views it a different way, but it still comes down to an area of acceptance. And so if you can show up as like the dad that you want to be in every situation, and always think about, what it is that I'm feeling and what it is that, I'm presenting, how would I be seen on the outside? Is that congruent with how I'm feeling on the inside? A lot of the time we will, especially in fitness, we worry about comparisons, and we get told, don't compare yourself to other people. Don't look at others, like, you're you, just you do you, don't worry about it. And I think it's so limiting, because, man, like, we've got the attention span of a goldfish these days, 3 to 5 seconds. And everyone has a phone. Everyone, like, Facebook just released something like there's over 1 billion users on Instagram now. Like, you cannot avoid comparing yourself, man. Like, it doesn't matter what you look at, like it's a part of it. And so being able to accept the fact that, like, look, as much as I don't want to compare myself, I do, everyone does. So being able to accept that, comparisons are part of your life, and knowing that, well, people will think different things, people will understand different things, but my judgment on myself of how I'm showing up as a dad, as a coach, as a partner, as an educator, as anything else, how I feel I'm going to be presenting, that's all on me. And so if I'm judging myself and going like, what's right, what's wrong, those are all my own perceptions of what I believe should and shouldn't be doing. I'm comparing myself to a version of me that, like, I don't want to be like, but I haven't done it yet. So I don't know, I haven't tried it yet. I'm looking at other people and thinking, I've got to be doing this thing because they seem happy. But when you can pull that back and go, hey, maybe I'll just like do this the way that I want to do it. And if I want to, work with someone else's time, I'll do that. If I want to just go, I don't want to talk to people today, I'm just going to go roll around on the floor with my kid and do that. That's fine. That's sweet. Will you feel anxious about not doing work? Probably. And it's very normal too. But the more you practice it, the more you get an understanding of knowing, like, is this something that, confirms my own morality and confirms my own beliefs and my thoughts? Or is this something that, I want to change? Is it something that's worth changing? So I find that, it's a very long-winded way of answering that question. But I feel that the key to balance is accepting your current position and using that to understand that you have the ability to make a decision whether you want to change that or not. And if you choose to not change that, understand that that's okay too. And finding the pursuit of like balance is like trying to find the pursuit of happiness, right? The more you're trying to be happy, you ain't going to be happy. Right? So the more you're trying to be balanced, most likely you're not going to find balance, whereas if you can just go, this is how things are right now, is it working for me? Kinda. So stick with the things that are, and the things that aren't, look at them and go, is this something that I need to change? Is it really beneficial for me to do it, or is it going to create more stress and anxiety? Does that answer your question? It's quite complex.
Yeah, 100%, bro. And I think that's kind of the route that I went down when I was thinking about it the past few days, is that, right, I'm trying to be 100% at both, and that's never going to happen. So I'm not going to be 100% on it as a coach or 100% on it as a dad at the same time. So it's just really just leveling up both sides to be as good as possible while still being able to do both. And that's kind of like the route that I went down, where, like, as long as I'm improving on the areas that, getting the balance right between the two, as long as I get a little bit better every day, then eventually I'm moving towards that 100% while still like keeping that balance.
Yeah, I used to think sometimes about, when I was mentoring people to stick to diets a little bit better. That was how it kind of originally started ages ago. I would kind of get people to think about the percentage of balance that they're putting into other areas of their life. So the key to balance that I thought of at that time was that if we have a competition that we're trying to compete in, and we've also got a family and we've got business, or you might have your job, whatever, we'll just call it occupation. We will put, if it's a comp, it's okay for you to put like 50% of your effort into comp and then 25% into the other two things. Okay. And then knowing that once that comp's over, you can then put 25% of your effort into comp and something else, and then 50% in whatever. And over time, I started to realize that maybe things shouldn't be weighed up that way, because it's not always going to work out. And that also allows us to be accepting of times that will be very limiting to what we can experience. I don't want to be knowing that I'm only putting 25% of my effort into my family. That's not cool. I don't want to be showing up and putting 25% of my effort into my business. Like, that's terrible. And, if we're looking at a comp, if I'm going, I'll put 50% of my effort into a comp, well, what about the other 50? We have this all or nothing mindset when it comes to competing. And so I thought, maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's more about, and this comes down to what I teach now, it's more about just showing up 100% you, rather than trying to juggle everything, right? Rather than trying to think that one thing is going to, take your priority for a certain amount of time, and then the other thing can jump up. It's more about possibly, relaxing that pressure to form that balance, and just making sure you're really firm and clear on like who you are and the areas of yourself that you're proud of. That's what's got to show up in all those areas. And if you do that, doesn't matter if it's unbalanced. It doesn't matter if there's time going into other areas. As long as you're yourself, right? Like we're going to be showing up the same person, and therefore we're going to be delivering the same results. So if you're proud of parts about you that, you know, you can think back and look at areas of your competing career. And like, that's what I'll do sometimes. I'll look at parts of myself that I'm really proud of. And I will then go, well, if I'm beating myself up over, you know, parent guilt, I'll put that into that. And I'll start to think, you know, well, I remember times when, you know, I felt like I really didn't want to go to the gym, but I forced myself to do it anyway. And I'm kind of happy that I was able to do that. And so if I think of times when like I've got a lot of work to do, but I'm getting asked to, you know, go outside and kick a 40. I'm like, oh, yeah, just in a second. Like, I've just got to finish this. I pull myself up on that and I go, hey, just show up as you, right? Like, you is somebody that goes, I'm going to do the things that like, they're not at the forefront of my mind, but I know once I take the action on making that decision, I feel a lot better about it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so once I started doing that, man, it changed everything. And so I think that the key to finding that balance is by just showing up all as you and letting that go into other areas rather than trying to like put your effort in different baskets in other areas.
Yeah, I mean, and I think as soon as you said that quote, just be 100% you, I was like, fuck, that just explains everything that I was just thinking in one little caption, one little like quote. So that was perfect, buddy. That just sums it up perfectly for me, I think. And it is something that I do try to do, is just to be authentically me. You know, I don't try to, you know, copy people or try to be somebody who I'm not. I'm normally quite upbeat. I normally don't get down, but like if I'm having a down day, I just accept that I'm having one. I might not always talk about it, but you know, I'm accepting that it's not always going to be positive, but as long as I'm always being me, that's the main thing, right? So,
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Well done.
yeah. So, and let's switch it a bit. So self-confidence is something that when I noticed your posts lately, you were talking a lot about self-confidence and how these programs, like whether it's a general physique coaching program or this specific one that you're building now to help people level up in that area of their life, that's a massive thing for people, like getting that confidence in any area of their life. But normally I find that, you know, empowering their physique, because obviously that's the realm that I'm in. I'm not a psych major like you, but that empowering their physique leads to that self-confidence building, which carries over to other areas of their life. But if somebody just wanted some simple tips without hiring you, without hiring me to help with that, what's the sort of easy go-to things that you'd say to somebody if you had like to give them a snapshot of like what they can do to increase that self-confidence? And I know it's a hard one. It's a deep one as well, but
you saw my face as soon as you asked that question.
Yeah.
I'll start with saying that like if you want to be able to maximize or at least get down the track of increasing and improving your self-confidence, you've got to understand that will be a hard thing, but it doesn't need to be time consuming. So what I mean by that is, I'm sure people have tried, you know, like the gratitude journals and you know, writing things that you're happy about today. And like, that's awesome. You know, I go to bed with my daughter and I'll say to her, you know, like, what's 3 things that made you happy today? And we'll share things together with ourselves like that at the end of the night. And so it is important. But what I found is that over time, that starts to not have the same impact as what it originally did. And so it's kind of like just lighting a match, you know, like you flick it, it lights, and then it fizzles out. And then the next time, you're not as, you know, fixated on that one match. You've got to get, you know, I'm going to pull 2 matches out of the box and then see if I can light both together. I remember being a kid and trying to pull as many matches as I could out of the box and then ripping it against like the side of the thing, right? And you go, wow, you know, but it all fizzles out in the end, right? And that's where we get to these stages where we try things over and over and over again. And in doing so, we actually lose our confidence in the ability to gain it back, because we go, I've tried this, it didn't work. I've tried this, it's not doing anything. It's kind of doing this, but I'm not getting there, right? And so the key then comes down more to self-acceptance, because without acceptance, we can't really increase our self-esteem. And if we want to be increasing our self-esteem, that's going to lead to that ultimate confidence, right? It's kind of the way that we feel about ourselves. We feel good about ourselves, we're going to be able to feel like we can do more. We're going to be able to feel like, yeah, I can take that on. I can have that conversation. I might not know how to, but I feel like, you know, I'm good enough to be able to go down this path, right?
Yeah.
And so it all comes down to like this self-acceptance. And if you can put yourself in the position of understanding that accepting yourself is viewing how you are right now and the things that you might have done previously with no judgment, no good, no bad, and just actually going, you know, this is what it is. All right. I read a really, really cool thing the other day, and it was comparing self-acceptance to weather, right? And if we think about a rainy day. You can have somebody going, oh, it's raining, it's wet, it's going to make me late for work, there's going to be traffic all over the place, I don't have an umbrella, I'm going to get wet, I'm going to get saturated, I haven't done my hair's going to go frizzy, what if I slip over, what if I bring the water into the car, the leather's going to get ruined, I'm cold, all this kind of stuff, right? The other side, and the accepting side of a person is, it's raining, yep, it's raining. Right? And so that comes down to, you know, there's no judgment, you know, the thoughts might still be there, don't get me wrong, but it's just, yep, that's what happened, right?
Yeah.
This is what's happening, okay? And once we can start to view things with no judgment, we can begin to realize that we are judging ourselves so critically, you know, we're putting so much emphasis on ourselves, you know, be better versions of ourselves that, you know, we almost can't accept anything. It's hard. You know, most of the time if you tell someone, hey, you just got to accept things the way that they are, they're going to go, but I can't. How do I do that? Just teach me, right? It's very limiting. So if we can look at ourselves with no judgment and be able to accept that, that's the first part. The second part moving forward is understanding that when you are accepting of yourself, you are not saying that this position is okay. And you're also not saying that you don't wish to move away from it. All you're doing is giving yourself the opportunity to make a decision. Okay, so if you're accepting yourself, and let's look at, I like to use this example, it might be a little bit triggering, I'm not sure who's listening to your audience, but let's use the example of like fat acceptance or obesity acceptance. And we'll see people, you know, being really accepting and open and comfortable in their own skin and that kind of stuff. Now, for the most part, if we are accepting of ourselves, then realistically, what we mean is we are accepting, we know the current position, and then we are able to have the ability to make a decision to go in one way or the other, and also to get out of a position that may be detrimental to our health. Acceptance is not being able to sit in your misery and understand that everything is just happening to you and be fine with it. Okay, that, for lack of a better term, that's giving up. Acceptance is about understanding that you're in this position and you can be comfortable in that position, but you can also be choosing to work towards it in another way. You can be making you can be making the decision to go, yep, this is how I am. And I like going to the gym because it's making me feel happy. And I like being able to exert myself. I like the feeling of exercise. I also like eating well because when I notice that when I eat well, it makes me have more energy throughout the day. Okay. And all of a sudden we're looking and we're taking it from a different, you know, perspective. You know, that is true acceptance. If someone's overweight or they're obese, or it doesn't matter, you know, how they look or how they feel, you know, if they can be truly accepting and still working towards something because they know that they're getting certain feelings out of it, that's great. You know, that's proper acceptance. Where people get stuck is that they'll try to accept themselves, but in doing so, they feel like it's limiting because they almost feel like they're making themselves sit in this pit of misery of going, yep, it happened. Yep, I'm like this. Why am I like this? Why do I have to be like this? I know I've just got to like stick with it. I know I'm just going to like deal with it. You know, I accept it's happened. You know, that really is pretty backwards. You know, that's really limiting, and it also invalidates how we truly feel. And so once you can look at acceptance from that light, you can start to validate like your true feelings and understand that everything that you feel and what you're experiencing, it's all real, and it's also all quite common. And so when you can see that, you can then begin to look at it from a different light, and you can begin to go, well, just the fact that I had the ability to look at myself in that light and to see myself without judgment, I'm already 10 steps ahead of what I was beforehand. You know, I'm already on the right direction. And then once you can affirm to yourself that you are in the right direction by seeing that, you can then start to go, hey, maybe I can do this. Right? Yeah. And so confidence starts to build up out of nowhere, and you start taking action towards different things. So it really just comes down to, in my opinion, it comes down to self-acceptance and knowing where that can start from, what it means, going through that process, and then giving yourself the chance to come out the other side, doing something in whatever decision, you know, it is that you want to do, and being able to work towards a certain thing if you would like to. If not, accept that that's fine too.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's massive, man. And I think that sums it up perfectly. Like, we've went very deep on this, mate, but this is the type of podcast that I really thrive off. And I know that the people listening are going to absolutely buzz off this. Like, there's a lot in there that can help people, from like the initial stuff we went through. You've helped me with some stuff in terms of being 100% me.
Thank you.
And in terms of that confidence thing, because that's a massive issue now, right? So Whether it's a male, whether it's a female, whether it's somebody who's overweight, whether it's somebody who's anxious about a work environment, whatever it is, like that can build their confidence just by, like you said, that self-acceptance and working towards it. So like there's something for everyone in here, mate. So I've really got to thank you for coming on board and giving up your time here today. Now a lot of people after listening to this will be like, oh, who is this guy and how do I follow him? So shout out your socials, any businesses, like if you got multiple socials that people can get in touch with you on, or what's the best way for people to find you and get in touch then, Cal?
The best way would be at the Physique Coach Au on Instagram. Also at the Physique Coach on Facebook, or Carl Weber on Facebook if you're looking for my normal stuff. I'm also involved with Sports Nutrition Australia, so you can find them on Instagram as well. And SNA helps to certify and register nutritionists for dealing with people in sports, and PTs to upskill their own nutrition knowledge. I contribute to them from a motivational and mindset perspective for people going through the fitness endeavors, and coaches to help them understand what different types of people might be going through. But if someone wants to reach out to me, have a chat, I'm always open. I'd love to communicate with them about this stuff at the Physique Coach Au. And everything always starts with just a conversation. And I think if I could leave someone on a positive note, it would be that coming on here is an amazing opportunity, and I really appreciate you giving me the space to air all this kind of stuff, because there's times where I don't feel confident as well, and there's times that people will see you in a certain light that you don't understand. And there's also been plenty of times in my own head, even just recently, I'm like, who am I to talk about this kind of stuff? Yeah. Okay, I would really like people to realize that it's human, it's normal, we all experience it. And I'm not on a pinnacle with this kind of stuff. I've just gone on a very, very reflective journey for an extensive period of time, and I love the position that it's put me into. It's found a passion for me, but it also doesn't make me any different, really, because I've still experienced the same, not the same, but I've still experienced my own scenarios, and I've still experienced my own versions of these different types of feelings. And so there's never a point that we really fix everything, but there's plenty of times we have the opportunity to review it and understand where we came from. And I think if people were to listen to this and think, wow, like I want to get to that position, just remember, probably already on the right track by even thinking that in the first place.
Yeah, massive. Like I said, I can't thank you enough. You give up tons of your time today. This is going to be a massive value. So guys, if you've enjoyed this, please take a screenshot, tag me, tag Kyle at the Physique Coach Au. Let us know, because there's so much in here, and I'd love to know. There we go, big flex. I'd love to know exactly what you liked and what you enjoyed about the episode, and I'm sure Kyle would as well. So please hit us up, let us know. And just share, because the amount of people this is going to benefit if it gets into the right hands, and just by you sharing it, you're then contributing to somebody who might follow through and might download the podcast, listen to us for an hour, talk about all this awesome content, and you've positively impacted somebody's day just by sharing it. So Cal, thank you for coming on. Guys, thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next episode of the O Show, and we will speak to you very soon, Cal.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thanks for listening to The O Show with your host, Oren McCory. If you liked this episode, then please subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening and share this on your social media. We'll see you on the next episode for more no-nonsense advice to help you supercharge your efforts in the gym, in the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. See you then.